Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Fun and Games with Ludo and Raph, where we have fun and games with Ludo and Raph.
And I think it's going to be very fun this time because I actually prepared. I did my homework this time. I'm usually not very good, but I'm taking new drugs, so now I'm better at keeping my plans.
Last week on the Cringy Movie Collection podcast, we talked about Rush Hour 2, which we both agreed was a terrible sequel to a kind of fun movie. And so I was wondering if we can come up with some sequels that were actually good. Now, there are a few rules, some of which I'm not sure if I've communicated it beforehand, so that's fine.
I know the rules. Can I say the rules?
If you know all of them.
Yes. So we're not going to speak about movies that are in the collection, like sequels that are in the collection, and that we have.
No Dark Knight, no Jump
Mission
Street.
Impossible 2 that I would like to watch. I'm very curious.
Also, that wouldn't be on this list. Mission Impossible 2 wouldn't be on this list.
I don't know.
It's a terrible movie.
I haven't seen it. I'm curious to see. It's a sequel that titillates my fantasies.
But speaking of Mission Impossible, we're not doing like for my list. I don't know if you do this, but I've focused on part 2s. Like,
no, I have a part 3.
Okay, so I didn't. So like there's a lot of good James Bond movies, but like specifically from Russia with Love to me isn't a great sequel specifically. It's a good movie, but whatever. Like. So, and then it's,
Then we're also not saying anything about Lord of the Rings, for example, because it's a trilogy and it's already been conceptualized as one unit and they've been filmed at the same time.
Right. Trilogies in and of themselves, like, I don't know, Indiana Jones isn't off limits in that respect.
That's off limits because it's in the collection.
Right. But if you have a movie that's with part 2 is being shot simultaneously, then it doesn't really count.
Yes. And also, I think that we are not going to talk about movies that, even though they're not in Raph's collection, have been seen on this podcast, because you all know that I like The Godfather 2.
Oh, it would be pointless.
So, exactly.
Go watch that
That's
episode.
Repetitive.
Right. So we both came up with 3 movies.
Yes.
3 part 2s or sequels in some respect. That we enjoyed greatly and think are a good movie. I also, for my list, didn't really focus. Like, it doesn't have to be better than the original. It just has to be a good movie.
My list had to because.
Okay.
So I could give you another sequel if you want to take my part 3 out. If it doesn't have to be better than the original movie.
We'll get to it as we cross it.
No.
Now, I would encourage you to keep the one that you think I also have on my list for last.
Oh no! I don't think so because it's a part 3. So. It's probably not.
Right, but there's probably one that we both have on this list.
Maybe. I don't know.
How about we give the audience a hint?
Okay.
Nicolas Cage approves of this movie.
It's not on my list.
No? Okay.
No.
Well, that will be... why don't I just start out then?
Yeah.
While I already mentioned it. For me, one of the really good sequels is Paddington 2. Which it's a sequel to Paddington, and they're both just really enjoyable, cute movies that are also fun for grown-ups. This one has Hugh Grant as a weird cross-dressing villain. I do think that I like the first one better. A lot of people generally agree that Paddington 2 is like a step above the first one, but that doesn't mean that Paddington 2 isn't a great movie.
Okay, this is why
really
it's not on my list, because I put movies that I generally like better than the first one. And I also think that Paddington 2 should have been mentioned in this episode because everybody says that this is the greatest movies of all time. Mm-hmm. And Paddington 1 is perfect. It's super nice. It's so much.
It's an origin story.
I really like it better than Paddington 2, even though Paddington 2 is delightful because it's still Paddington and Hugh Grant is very good in his performance. But still, like Paddington 1, like nobody mentions it ever. So this is why it's not on my list.
It has Bear left from a GPS and it's the greatest joke ever.
Exactly.
Anyway, what's on your list?
So I'm going to start with the one that it's controversial because it's a part 3, and it's Back to the Future part 3.
Yeah, okay.
I figure out while I was doing this research that I haven't seen so many sequels. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not really into sequels, but I really like this movie because it's in the Far West.
In the Far West?
Yes.
You mean the Wild West?
It's in the Wild, Wild West. There are cowboys. It's a lot of Doc. Like, Doc is very prominent, while in the first movie, like, it's more like
Because it's about saving Doc Brown,
Yes,
who ends up not
exactly.
wanting to be saved.
Yes, and his name is Eastwood. Clint Eastwood. I think it's so nice. There is ZZ Top, like the soundtrack. It's amazing. They throw a pie plate that is made from the brand Frisbees. Like I think it's
Silly.
nicer, and also I think maybe I like it better because the first one was in 1985 and it was current times and they were going back. But I started watching it when 1985 was already back and back. So this time it's like for everybody is back and back, and we
almost
agree
more
that
relatable.
this is yes.
So obviously I looked at other people's lists of good sequels, and Back to the Future, particularly Part 3, came up as well. Now, that always made me think that everybody agrees that Back to the Future 2 is not a good movie.
That's not a good movie.
You think so?
Because I really don't like beef.
It's very
and,
rapey.
Every time that they are in the beef building, there's like kind of like Trumpy. And I think that now it's even worse because we had Donald Trump as like American president, and like the beef character in Part of the Future too is so much inspired by Donald Trump, or in a kind like his kind of character.
Back to the Future
It's,
2,
just icky.
the vibe is very depressing.
Yeah.
And straight up rapey. It also has the cliffhanger ending, which is annoying. And one of the things that I never quite like, that is, goes back to the first one and almost like messes with the timeline some more, which then later, when I've seen the movie again, I actually have to say, from a filmmaking perspective, it's incredible. It's like seamless.
One thing that I really like bothers me is that we know that Michael parents are high school sweethearts that had kids, but why did
Michael
he have
J. Fox?
Yes, it was like Marty's parents. They're high school sweethearts and they may have kids. But why did Marty had to stay with his high school sweetheart and have kids? Like, isn't like a little bit, now it's your kids also. They're going to get married and have kids, of course. Like, Marty could have his own life, meet other people, go around. Like,
Go around.
I don't
just
know.
walk.
Yes, until he can. I don't know. It's like it just feels a little bit too on the nose.
I think Back to the Future 2 is still a good movie. It's just, as a sequel, it's one of the things that sequels have trouble with. Like, like we talked about Rush Hour 2, which is like a bad movie, basically. It's not really it's not enjoyable. It's just like, in every way, it's worse. But then there are some movies that they're worse than the original, but they're still good, right? Like I think, against Back to the Future, which is such a fun movie. Yeah. This vibe change is such a weird turn.
Kind of like Indiana Jones.
Yes, where it's like, that's going to alienate a lot of people who came here because of the first one. And I think that's happened to a lot of people.
But also I think that Rush Hour 2, it's not like such an awful movie. It's just that it's not a good standalone movie. If it was the first movie, you wouldn't care.
You wouldn't recommend this to people.
Yes. So, and I think that Back to the Future 2 is the same.
Yeah. Now, here's a movie that is basically, if you like the first one, you'll like this one because it's just more of the same. Deadpool 2.
I haven't seen it.
Deadpool 2 is basically more of the self-aware, gross-out, silly, Ryan Reynolds style action comedy nonsense. It has really funny jokes, and then it has like a lot of things that are just like kind of lame. But overall, I think it's a good time. And again, if you like the first one, this is just more of that, and it's worth your time.
And this is why I don't watch sequels, because if I like the first one, then I rewatch the first one. I don't go and watch the part 2, like the second one.
In Deadpool 2, he assembles like a team of superheroes, but they're all like really silly.
Okay.
Like there's like Invisible Man, but he like parachutes and gets electrocuted, and then like that's the only time we see who he is, and he has the face of Brad Pitt.
Okay.
Like, it's just weird stuff.
It could be nice. I think I could watch it.
He's got a lady on his team whose her superpower is that she's lucky. So whatever she does, it just works out. And
nice.
It's funny, because she gives no shits. She just walks around. She walks into traffic and like nothing bad happens ever because she's lucky.
Okay.
Good time.
Then I go to what I think it's on my list. That is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
I like it better than the first one because I like the opening scene on Hoth. It's very cold. I like cold, and I like that Han Solo goes back to save all the like saving and cutting the animal to keep warm. I don't know. I just really like it.
The smelly bantha.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it when Luke goes to see Yoda. I know they say that it looks a lot like a puppet, but I just don't know. I just like old Yoda.
Well,
That is not CGI'd yet. So.
Come clear here for a second. I mean, your opinion here is not controversial, right?
No.
What's controversial is that I don't really like
Yes.
Star Wars. And I will agree with you that this is a good movie. But that's about it. Like, I don't... I have no desire to ever rewatch this movie. I've seen it like 4 times as well. Like, I think I'm good.
And the third...
But also the thing about Yoda is like, I think a lot of people disagree. A lot of people are amazed at the power work in that movie. And to me, it just doesn't, it just feels like a guy in a sock, like a hand in a sock.
Exactly. But I like it for some reason. I know I don't really usually like puppets, so maybe this is what it makes it special, because it's the puppet that made it. And I also really like the character of Lando, and I like the end of the movie, that when they are in the Cloud City.
You like that?
Yes, I like that Lando is, like, you really see him like in this conundrum, that is to say, what should I do? And then we see what happens next, and then there is I love you, I know that. It's
Okay, well, that part I think is fine.
Solo,
I don't like the actual end of the movie, where it's like setting up the third part.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, it's fine within the concept of Star Wars, which is like, this is an episodic thing, you know, almost like a TV serial, which is what the inspiration was for it. But I just don't like it. I don't want that.
Yeah, it's not conclusive, the end, but it could also be just a very long movie, the second and the third part, and I would be happy with it. I like long movies.
Yeah.
But I think that The Empire Strikes Back is the best one that I like. And I agree with the majority of the people. But okay.
And I think of those 3 movies, I might agree. Maybe the first one is better, but the first one is less iconic in terms of, like, it doesn't have Luke, I'm your father. It doesn't have I love you, I know. Like, those are all things in the sequel.
I think that in the first one, Luke is too whiny. In the second one,
it's go to Tashi Station.
It's in between whiny and getting to be a Jedi. And in the third one, is already a Jedi. It's very sure of himself.
A little priestly.
So, like, Luke in the second one is the best Luke, in my opinion.
Okay. I was about to say, like, maybe we'll do a little Star Wars special one day, but that would require me to watch these movies again, and I won't. So maybe not.
Okay.
Final movie that I have on my list. I think you can guess this. This is the one that everybody says, and you know that I would like that movie. You want to give it a guess, or
Toy Story?
No, Toy Story is a good one as well, but Toy Story wasn't my thing. Strangely, it was all the animated movies after that.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, those are the trailblazers, and I missed them a little bit. Spider-Man 2.
Oh.
Because I love Spider-Man, and I love Spider-Man 2, and a lot of people agree, and I agree as well, it's better than the first one.
But with Tobey Maguire?
We're talking Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 2, and I think a lot of the reason why the second one is better is because Doc Ock is so, they nail it so much with Alfred Molina.
Oh, the guy with the eyebrows.
Alfred Molina, the guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark's opening scene. He's so good. He's so good at Doc Ock that they basically, they made another movie that is mostly carried by the fact that they get Alfred Molina to do Doc Ock again 20 years later. To be fair, in the same movie, they also get the villain from the first Spider-Man movie, which is Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. But it's just so iconic and it's so perfect.
Okay.
And the action is slightly better and everything is technologically a little more advanced.
I agree with you. Spider-Man 2 is better than Spider-Man 1, but I didn't like the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. See, I like those movies because they also have this slightly handcrafted feel to them. And it's just, that's what I like in movies.
I just don't like Tobey Maguire's face when he runs.
I was going to say you don't like Tobey Maguire's face when he cries because Spider-Man 2
it's the same
ugly
face.
crying all the way through the movie.
It's just no.
Okay, well that's one of my favorite sequels and it's
my
excellent.
Third sequel is an animated movie.
Okay.
It's Shrek 2.
Classic, sure. I don't remember really Shrek 2, which is why I wouldn't consider it
I like it better than I like the Shrek movies for some reason, even if it's not Disney.
Shrek 2 is the one that introduces Puss in Boots, voiced by Antonio Banderas.
But not because of that. I really like it because there is this character of the fairy godmother, and there is the Prince Charming, and I just...
And she sings I Need a Hero at some point.
Yes, at the end of the movie she sings I Need a Hero. I just loved the character of the fairy godmother. And
there's the Muffin Man and all those things.
Yes,
right?
and I think that Shrek 1 was fine, but it really developed very well into a very good standalone movie. So... Honorable mention.
Fair enough. I mean, it's honorable mention?
Yes. Like, it's a good... Yeah. It's like...
Honorable mention means it's not on the list, though.
Okay. So, no. I have an honorable mention.
Oh, okay. No, but...
Maybe. I don't know.
The Shrek movies have a certain allure because they are silly comedies, self-aware comedies, but they're about fairy tales. So, like, everybody kind of knows what they're referencing, which makes parodying, like, a lot easier. Like, if you had an Indiana Jones parody and someone hadn't seen Indiana Jones, it would be like... Why is that supposed to be like references on and of themselves can't be funny, but you have it a little bit easier if you're doing fairy tales.
Yeah.
And also, this is why I probably like the first one so much is because it's actually making specifically fun of Disney, and like the whole history behind it. It's so interesting. It's so fun. But like, fair enough. So you have an honorable mention?
Well, no, but because I had a movie that I liked, but I didn't think it was as good as the first one. But I think it's a good sequel. That is Ocean 12.
Ocean's 12, really?
Yes.
I hated Ocean's 12.
Really?
I don't remember because I've only watched it once, hated it, and never concerned myself with it again. But what I remember of Ocean's 12 is that in the end, it's a whole thing about we already went here 2 weeks before and did everything. And I was so disappointed. It's actually, we did Flight Plan recently, where I had a problem with the resolution of it all, much more so than you. And I think maybe that's why you like that movie and I don't, because I have a problem when the resolution seems lame.
Yes, I think I like Ocean's 11 better because it's set in a casino and I think it's a cool setting.
Yeah.
But I do like in Ocean's 12 that... the guy with the hairy chest becomes
Andy
kind
Garcia.
of working with them.
I shouldn't know
and
this.
He has okay, Andy Garcia is in his Godfather 3.
He's the villain in the first movie.
Yes, and he's in the Godfather 3, and his chest is very hairy, and I always thought it was nice.
And I can't live up to that,
Nobody can live up to that.
Yeah.
And he now becomes like kind of working with them, so you see a little bit more of his character. So I really like Andy Garcia. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's our list of sequels that we liked, or one of us liked. Go down to the comments and tell us which sequels you love. I also have to say that I went through. Lists of, like I said, other people's lists of this and like voted lists and things like that. And you know what? I haven't seen some of these,
I also discovered that
possible.
some movies are sequels, and I didn't know that there are sequels. Like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly apparently is a sequel.
In a way, in that kind of Fistful of Dollars trilogy.
Yeah, okay. I didn't thought that it was a sequel, so it was not on this list.
Right. But also, like, sometimes... like some prominent sequel I just haven't seen, and that's why it's not on the list. So, go nuts. Also, another thing is I noticed a lot of sequels that I didn't remember. I know, like Shrek 2 I've seen, but I don't remember much. Like only now that we talked about it, it comes back to me. And so obviously, I'm not gonna say like what a great sequel. I remember nothing of it. So. Yeah, so don't be offended if your favorite thing isn't there. Just let us know.
But please recommend it to us.
Maybe we'll do a round 2 if we get hundreds of comments.
I have some sequels that I want to watch since reading the list, so we can do it.
And join us next week for Flushed Away.
Bye!